Hi everyone, we're going to take a look at a verse, John 15:6, which is actually Jesus teaching us that if we don't continue to abide in him, we will fail because we can do nothing without him. And if we fail, he's then going to throw us outside and where trash, he's giving an imagery. You're on a farm in a vineyard and you have these bad grapes that you have to remove from the vine to keep that vine healthy, so that you're going to be cut off and you're going to be thrown outside. And outside a vineyard would be a place where you put all these bad vines and then you burn them, and that's what he says is going to happen to us. This is directly the same imagery that he gives, the same voice through John again in the book of Revelation, which actually is 30 years before this. So John knows what Jesus is talking about. We'll compare Revelation 22 verse 15 to this passage. Same words, and it's very clear those people are losing their salvation in John and in the book of Revelation by being outside. So, but you are not allowed to see that because this is not translated that way. So here's even Mouncy in his transliteral, which I trust most of the time. But even here, if you look down at the bottom left, thrown away is going to be the key passage, key word that's hidden, and he's going to say away. But exo, when he's got the same word in Revelation 22 verse 15, he translates it outside. So there's where you got to question, why is that happening? But my point is not to criticize Mr. Mouncy. My point is to show tradition has come of a way of concealing it. It's use the word away, because that's in I think that's in the NIV. KJV used cast forth, so you don't see this, and then you don't understand the consequences. Jesus is giving you a threat. You will be thrown outside into the garbage heap and you will be burned. You're going to go to hell. Okay. But you're not allowed to see that. But we're going to show it to you today. And why I'm doing this is that I did a recent video explaining why I prefer the Reina Valera, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And this was one of the verses back in 1998. I sensed something was wrong, and I hadn't even yet come to the realization about Paul and the systemic mistranslations to help him. I'm looking at this, and the Reina Valera uses the word afuera, which we'll discuss. So there was something wrong with it. But let's listen to this verse, and we'll go through the Reina Valera just so you know what was the genesis of this. And lastly, the reason I'm bringing this out is God is great, because on my daily it's called the Daily Dose of Greek, you get to listen to one verse being translated by this guy every day, and it was John 15:6, and it was just providential because I had just done the video the day before on the Reina Valera John 15:6 issue. So I thought, you know what, that's a sign from God that I'm going to have to do a video, a short one. So here we go, just reading it quickly. I am the vine, you the branches, the one who abides in me, and I in him bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. If anyone does not abide in me, he's like a branch that is thrown outside, but Mr. Mouncy says it's away there. We're going to question that. And withers. Men gather them and throw them into the fire, and they are burned. And so when you hear the word outside, you would normally connect it to Revelation 22, verse 15. And we'll read that to you later to show you what your memory is telling you. There's some verse that sounds a lot like this one. Okay, and this is what spawned this in 1998. I'm sitting in a foreign country, and we're doing missionary work, my wife and me, and I am just simply noticing that the people of the Spanish-speaking countries understand salvation differently than we do, and then I'm trying to figure out why. Why are they telling pastors from the United States to leave? Because they preach faith alone in the Assembly of God. My goodness, a very evangelical church in the United States, so I'm helping and working in conjunction with them, and I'm kind of shocked. And they think James is actually taking his authority on par with Paul. This just was shocking to me. So I started researching their Bible, and I found their Bible is very different. But then I looked at the Greek, and it was very consistent with the Greek, and our Bibles are not. And one of the examples I can show you clear cut. The KJV and NIV does not follow the Bible. It does not translate a word that's there, and you miss the meaning of the passage. So here's what I wrote, and we talked about in another video. John 15:6, KJV and NIV both say the unproductive branches, quote, thrown away and cast forth, respectively, but then neither translate the next Greek word out or outside. So they don't give you the full meaning of the text. That appears in all Greek texts. Jesus then says these outside are to be burned. This is the only time in the KJV and NIV that this Greek word for out or outside is not translated at all. They just completely obliterate it. It's not and they are not giving you the actual Greek word of out or outside, so you cannot see the symmetry with other passages like Revelation 22:15. Let's go to the Reina Valera. Do they clearly use the right word? John 15:6 in the RVA matches the Greek, translating outside afuera into the phrase será echado fuera, to be burned. The RVA thus lets us see the link to Revelation 22:15, where outside are all the evildoers who will be burned in the lake of fire. Okay, so the next video will be an excerpt, a partial portion of the Daily Dose of Greek from would have been today's August 6th, 8th, 9th, so it would have been on the 7th, I think. And I highly recommend you watch this every day, because you're actually hearing someone who's not checking the boxes like, am I saying anything that's wrong that this is going to get me in trouble with the authorities? I'm just translating. Yeah, he's just translating and he's doing it right. So this is how you hear someone who's a professional and who knows what he's doing. Well, at least in this verse.
Unless someone abides in me, he is thrown out like the branch. In other words, like a branch is thrown out and is withered or withers away, withers up. He's thrown out and withers away. And then we have these third person plurals here that are indefinite plurals, right? This is a way of reporting something happening without specifying explicitly who's doing it. In English, we would often put these in the passive, right? We'll do it literally here. We'll render it literally. And they gather them, that is, gather the branches, right? Neuter plural right there for the branches. And they gather them, and into the fire they throw, implied them, and they burn up, right? And again, even though this last verb is third person singular, remember it's a neuter plural subject that's implied here. So neuter plural subjects take singular verbs. I'm just going to read through the whole verse again. I know it's a bit tricky and we don't have a whole lot of time, but let's read through it once more as literally as we can, but rendering these aorist nomically or timelessly, proverbially. Unless someone abides in me, he is thrown out like a branch, right? As the branch is thrown out, and withers up, and they gather them, in other words, the branches are gathered, and into the fire they throw them, in other words, and they're thrown into the fire, and they burn up.
Okay, so I just want to emphasize that this is the only time in the KJV and the NIV that this Greek word, EXO, for out or outside is not translated at all. So you have to wonder why, right? And it's not really a mystery, because in your mind would arise the immediate connection to Revelation 22:15. Okay, so when we look at this verse, we're going to see why John 15:6 was mistranslated by the KJV and is still mistranslated most of the time to not use the word outside. You were thrown outside, you were cast outside, so it has to change it to cast forth, or you were thrown away. Revelation 22:14-15. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have the right to the tree of life, and may enter into the gates and into the city. For without, mistranslation, outside are dogs and sorcerers and whoremongers and murderers and idolaters and whosoever loves and makes a lie. So if you look at the Mouncy translation for this very passage, he translates the word that's translated as without, he translates it as, it's exo is the Greek, he translates it as outside. So this is why we have to dig deep, and usually Mouncy will help you find out what the actual words were originally and what a Greek person who read it would have seen, but you are not permitted to see half the time. So here, half the time it was wrongly translated, and the Daily Dose of Greek backed up what I said in my previous video from a few days ago, that there's a word there that's not being disclosed to the listener, and that's the word out or outside in English. Okay, God bless. Take care, everybody. Hope this helped. Ciao.